grade, my mother had to move back in for my grandmother for whatever reason. But my grandmother lives with her grandfather, and she was a heroin addict. And there was a lot of traffic going in and out of that house. So it wasn't the best environment. At some point, my favorite uncle gets out of jail or prison, and he comes to stay with us at my grandmother's house while my grandmother is still staying with her father. So we're all at my G Daddy's house. And time goes by, and I don't know what my uncle did at this time. He was running from the police, and he ran through the door. He shut the door, and it happened so fast we couldn't react. I was asleep, and I just kind of jump up, and I'm looking, and he runs through the door. He runs towards the back where my brother was, and there's 2 extra rooms over there, so he probably went to the other rooms, or there was a back door. He could have been trying to go that way. Either way, he goes through, he shuts the door, and then the police kick down the door, and then they're pointing a gun at me. And I'm just like, 5th grade little dumb girl, like, don't know what's going on. And my brother screams, she's just a little girl, she's just a little girl. My mom comes, she probably went to the store or something, because she came right after that, and she's like, what's going on? By this time, the police had already had me and my brother outside. They found my uncle, drug him out, and put him in the jail. But that was the first time. That was not the first time. That was the second or third time that we had incidents with the police busting down our door to look for a relative of mine. The first time I lived with my other grandmother. So this story was about my maternal grandmother and her family. So when I was in kindergarten, 1st grade, I lived with my paternal grandmother, and my uncle was not the best person then. I don't know what kind of person he is now, but at that time he was not the best. And he gave me this plant, and this plant was so pretty, and I love this plant so much. And he told me to water this plant every 2 days or whatever and keep it in the sun. And I would get home from school, I would get off the bus, and I would run upstairs and go check on my plant. And he told me to love this plant and talk to the plant. So I would love the plant, and I would talk to her. And she was just soil, so I didn't know. Then she started growing, she started getting pretty, and I was just so happy because she was just so pretty. And one day, the police come, and I don't know if they kicked down the door, but I know that the police came, and I was upstairs in my room asleep. And the police came and woke me up, was like, go downstairs. And they gave me my blanket and a pillow. It was like, go downstairs. This fucking infuriated my grandmother, because she was like, who do you think you are? You're not Hillary Banks. Why do you have all this? And I'm like, he gave it to me. Mind you, in kindergarten, I was about 5 or 6. And I had just started learning how to speak properly at 5. I didn't speak until I was about 5. I made sounds and I tried to speak, but I was delayed. My speech was delayed. My speech is still delayed. My speech was delayed. Anyways, she was infuriated, and I'm like, yo, the cop gave it to me. And then so I go upstairs, and the cop was like, whose plant is that? I said, that's my plant. Don't touch my plant. And I'm trying to grab my plant. And he's just like, no. And he grabs my hand, and he walks me downstairs. He's like, you guys have the baby growing marijuana? I still don't know what marijuana was. All I know is that was my plant, and my uncle told me to take care of my plant. And I was like, give me my plant. That's my favorite plant. Who gave me this plant? My uncle gave me that plant. Give me the plant. Now, I don't know the rules of the police, and not speaking to the police. Mind you, I was kindergarten, 1st grade, and I was slow. I'm still slow now. But I, again, didn't speak till I was 5, so I didn't clearly comprehend. Or nobody taught me. I'm not, just because I'm from the hood and my family's gangsters don't mean I'm supposed to automatically know. Why y'all didn't teach me the rules of the hood? I found out that day. Because after the police left, my grandmother whooped my fucking ass for talking to the police and for being Hillary. And I didn't understand. I just remember being bruised so bad. Like, I just remember being bruised. And I remember her making me take a bath afterwards, and it was hot. But I did not want to take a cold bath. because another trauma story. I was abused. Damn, that's crazy. All these stories about grandmothers abusing me. Because when I was about to tell you guys a story about how I was abused, I was going to say, oh, this is another grandmother. So the first story is about Renee, who was my mother's grandmother. That story wasn't about her, but you guys get the point. And then the second story was about Yvonne, my father's mother. This next story is about Diane, who was my mother's father's wife. So I guess you can say step grandmother, but I never liked that. So Diane is just Diane. I was about 5 or 6 as well. We did a lot of moving around, and I always was a foster. So even if I didn't live with a legal foster family, I always lived with different relatives. I always lived with different relatives, so I never really lived with my parents the whole time. I was on and off, in and out of everybody's house, which in sense made me a target, but we'll talk about that in another video. So we're living in Washington State, and we're living with Diane, and I was taking a bath with my older sister, and the water was too hot. So I put cold water in there. I'm sorry I'm like zoning off because I can actually unfortunately visualize what happened, and I can remember how the bathroom looked, everything. Anyways, she had us take a bath together, and the water was too hot, so I added cold water. So my sister goes and tells Diane, like, hey, she put too much cold water in there. And for some reason that pissed Diane off, and she yanked me out that fucking tub. She yanked me out that tub, and she beat me with a telephone wire. And it's like, why would you beat? I didn't understand why I was getting beat before the water being too hot, like the water too hot. So I'm gonna leave that one alone. When my grandmother put me in the tub after she whooped me and had me in hot water, I just stood back because the hot water was like hurting my whoops. Plus, I knew not to ask for cold water because I had already been abused before for adding cold water when it's hot. So originally I was like gonna tell a story about all the different times the police kicked down our door, because there was unfortunately more times that I have stories about that. But this video is turning dark, and I wasn't expecting to get emotional and remember, being abused as a 5-year-old. But it is like, Diane, why did you beat me for putting cold water? Like, why would my grandmother beat me for talking to the police? Or for my uncle giving me a weed plant and me not knowing? Why would you beat me for having a blanket and a pillow? Just weird. But anyways, I guess I'll just do another video later, and I will talk about my crazy stories with the police, because yeah, this may have left, but I'm still gonna post it because clearly God wanted me to get that off my chest, because I had a little therapy session. So I'm just gonna call my therapist.